My name is NonStopAntonio, and another episode of Superman and Lois has premiered. So in this video, we're going to be talking about Season 3, Episode 8, reviewing it, breaking it down, and talking about that ending, because goddamn, I set up some pretty cool stuff for next episode. So let's jump into my review and breakdown for Superman and Lois, Episode 8. Welcome to NonStopAntonio, where I talk about everything nerdy. I love Marvel, DC, and anime, and if you do too, I hope you enjoy this video. This episode was pretty good for revelations. I don't think it really did much otherwise. It was pretty much all about making the characters realize what's going on, who's who, and where everyone sides. Otherwise, it felt a little bit slower. That was about my old take about it. Like, there was still a lot of character development during it, and there's a lot of good moments for characters. However, it wasn't my favorite episode, even though some of the ending did go pretty hard. This episode was really character driven, making Lois doubt herself as a reporter, and then eventually realize who she is and why she was doubting herself, and coming back to Lois, the reporter, having Mateo realize what his parents really are, because it turns out he never actually knew they were criminals. Jordan's starting to get looked into as Superboy, and Jonathan was finally able to join the junior firefighters. However, that got turned away real quick when Kyle thought he saved a person when Kyle told him to stay by the truck, but it was Jordan who did it all along. And then Sarah and Lana have some more bonding as mother and daughter. They still kind of forget about the sister though. And Pea's secret comes out, which all these moments really added to the characters. They showed where the characters are gonna go. They added some drama into their lives, but also gave a lot of them big revelations while it's going on. Like the biggest stuff being Pea's secret, what Bruno Mannheim's been doing, and Jordan slowly getting his secret exposed. But overall, it's not a bad episode by any ways. It's just, there was some stuff that was a little bit slow. Like, most of the stories can be very condensed when we're talking about them. So let's start talking about them. So the first one is going to be Jonathan, and him being accepted into the National Junior Program for firefighters, which it kind of gives him a purpose. Like, he wants to be a hero in a different way, so that he can still save people. And I like how Kyle tells him that he has to stay back and that he needs to stay by the truck so that he doesn't get hurt. However, by doing that, he sees Jordan going flying into the building, saving a dude, but in the end almost gets himself killed, because when Jordan comes blasting through the door, the flame almost hits Jonathan. And it makes sense why Kyle told him to stay by the car, because he could have been killed, but he didn't listen. However, then Kyle somehow thinks that Jonathan broke down the door and saved the guy, when it was Jordan all along. Which I understand why Jonathan later got pissed at Jordan, because it ruined Jonathan's path for where he wanted to go, and made Kyle take him off the junior program, and just made him doubt him entirely because he couldn't listen to orders. And I think at this point too, Kyle's just being overprotective because he's a kid and he's watching him so he doesn't get hurt in a fire, which totally makes sense. You want to be, if you're responsible for someone, you don't want them to get hurt. Except Jordan says some pretty messed up things too, because you're brothers, you're getting in arguments, like one's trying to save the day and the other one's trying to do it in a different way. However, you got the one that's trying to be a superhero and the one that's just trying to be a firefighter. So the one that's going to be a superhero is going to take the high and mighty road, being like, what, am I going to just let them die? Even though the firefighters did have it handled. But I think if Jordan didn't step in, that guy probably would have died. And I like how this all comes around at the end, where Sarah's like, you should apologize to your brother, like, it's not cool for what you did. But then Jordan twisting it and being like, you should have went to go see the concert with your mom. She just wants to spend time with you. Because earlier in the episode, Lana tries to get Sarah to come to a concert with her, but Sarah won't go because she doesn't know the music. Which I understand. If you don't know the artist, you don't really want to go to a concert. It was pretty much her mom just trying to bond with her. And you feel bad for Lana because her daughter says no. And she goes to Clark. Clark can't because he has to take Clara Lois. Then she asks Chrissy, and Chrissy says she has a conflict. But it wasn't a conflict of interest for seeing her. She just had other shit she had to do. But she gets all awkward about it, which was funny to watch. Chrissy getting awkward about Lana, I think, is going to be a fun little dynamic that goes throughout the season. But I like how it all comes back around at the end, where Sarah turns around and has like a little dance party with Lana. Well, they get to bond. Mother-daughter bonding time. And also later in the episode too, Jordan does go to apologize for his brother as well, because he does feel bad about getting mad at him, because they are brothers. They still love each other and they want to make things work. And I'm still betting Jonathan will get powers at some point. Now let's talk about the big story in the episode. Everything that had to do with Bruno Mannheim, Pea, Clark, and Lois. Because like the episode started off with like Lois not wanting to run a story about Pea and Bruno, because now Pea is her friend. She doesn't want to ruin that friendship. She doesn't want to tarnish who she is, bring out all her dirty laundry. She thinks she's a good person. And I like how it's showing how the reporter Lois would normally not even think about it. She would just do it. However, because Pei is kind of her friend, she's worried. She's getting a little too close to this. Even Clark mentions that she's getting close. But I totally thought after last episode, the direction they were going to go in was painting Bruno Mannheim as like this guy who has done some shitty things, but he's not that bad of a person. However, he's still an arms dealer and killed a lot of people. So he's still a bad guy, and Clark knows it, and Chrissy knows it. And we even find out that the reason Lex Luthor is in jail is because he was framed for killing Moxie, even though that was Bruno Mannheim and Pea. I do not remember if they revealed that earlier in the season that Lex Luthor was the one that took Moxie out, but apparently that's what happened. And then one of the things I liked about this episode is we did get a Diggle reference in Argus, where Sam gets some files from Argus about Bruno Mannheim, and they reference Diggle. I still really wish that this was on the same Earth as Arrow, The Flash, and everything else, because of the fact that it would be just cool to see our main version of Diggle interact with all of them, even though we have seen a Diggle interact with them. But I love how later in the episode, Lois finally comes to a realization, oh shit, Bruno Mannheim's not that good of a guy, we need to run this story, and they go into digging into some of the files of the murders that happened around Moxie and the crew, which Of course, Clark figures out that onomatopoeia was the one that killed all of them because it had that weird sound that every time she uses her powers makes. And it turns out the whole reason Lex Luthor is in jail is because I'm assuming Lois and Clark dug up all that details on them and put him in jail. So Lex has only been in jail this entire time since Moxie got killed by him. Interesting, I did not expect that to happen. That's a little big revelation for this story, where Lois and Clark are the reason that Lex Luthor is in prison. I don't think Lex Luthor is coming next episode, but I can totally see him coming in episode 10 for the last 4 episodes of the season and having him mess up some shit. But of course, this all ties into the Natalie Irons and John Henry Irons storyline with Mateo, because Natalie goes to dinner with his parents, because it does look like Bruno and Paya did not know that Natalie was John Henry Irons' daughter, and on top of it, Mateo did not know that his parents were criminals. Bruno and Paya look like loving parents, where they take care of their kid, and they want to meet his girlfriend, and then later you see John going to see his alternate Earth sister, them just talking. He tells her where the restaurant was, she tells him that's where Bruno Mannheim usually goes, and that's where her brother used to go, and then you just see John Henry Irons go straight to the restaurant, see Bruno Mannheim, and that's where shit starts to go down. You would think that Bruno Mannheim would have kind of played it off a little bit more, but no, he went straight into action where Paya was like, don't do this, don't do this. But Bruno was not having it, and he goes and starts beating the absolute shit out of John. And he's about to kill him too if his armor didn't show up in time. Paya tried to use her powers on him, and she did. She launched him out of the building. But I like how Bruno got his son out of there, showing that he doesn't want his son to see how he really is. Which I like, seeing Mateo knock out one of Bruno's men so that him and Natalie can go see her father, which shows that he had no idea about his family, but he still wants to help the girl he loved, even if it's against his family. I mean, maybe saying loved a little bit too soon because, you know, he barely knows Natalie, but it seems like he loves her because dude said she might be the one last episode. And luckily, Clark was listening to John Henry because he flew in for the save. Well, kind of. Because both him and John Henry got absolutely blasted by Paya. And if it wasn't for her overexerting herself, they probably would have got their asses kicked. But I think because she has cancer, her using her power so much is what's causing so much strain on her body. And because she keeps using it to take people out, she's just damaging her body more and more and more every time she goes out and does something. Which I totally thought when she fell to the ground, she dropped dead, but she survived and Superman brought her to the DEO. And Superman, of course, is going to do this because he's a good guy. Even the villains deserve a chance to live. And then, of course, John grabs his daughter and flies the hell out of there, so nothing bad happens to her. So a lot of shit happened this episode where a lot of big secrets were revealed. And it makes me wonder how next episode's gonna go because all these secrets were revealed, which means now they're gonna have to do something about them. And the ending for this episode also just wrapped up everything really quickly. It just kind of jumped to each story that it was kind of getting wrapped up for this episode. Paya in the DEO and being prisoned and treated. Jordan apologizing to his brother, but also finding out that Kyle and the other firefighters are looking into Jordan because they find ice at all these fires, knowing that there's another metahuman powered person in Smallville, which is not good. But it was cool to see Jonathan call Jordan Superboy. So I think this is most likely going to lead into Jordan being revealed to the public as Superman's son or another Kryptonian, at least on Earth. They're going to be like, who's this new mysterious metahuman or a powered person running around Smallville? And it's going to be picked up in some of the news that's not the Gazette. And Clark's going to have to do something about it because if someone finds out that Jordan is his son, shit's going to go down and the super family is not going to be safe. So there's a good chance that before everyone figures out who Jordan is, I think Clark is going to dress him up in a House of L suit and bring him out and declare him as Superboy. He might not say he's his son, but he might turn around and say, this is my cousin, just like how Kara is. Or maybe his nephew or something along those lines. And I think that would be pretty cool the way I'm curious to see how they deal with all that. Because I totally do think we are getting a proper Superboy suit this season. And Lois is also in disbelief because she's been so wrong this entire time. She was wrong about Lex Luthor because of the fact that her and Clark put him in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Which I think he's going to have some hell to raise once he gets out. And that's why he'll probably be the main villain for the final few episodes of the season. We have Sarah and Lana going and have a good moment together. Mateo getting mad at his father for finding out exactly what happened. Natalie being hurt because John says she can't see Mateo anymore, which makes sense, but I think it's gonna be like a Romeo and Juliet situation where they cannot see each other because of their parents, but they're gonna do it anyways. Not exactly like Romeo and Juliet, but you know what I mean. John has to fix his suit after Onomatopoeia freaking destroyed it, and it looks like Bizarro wakes up. Because of all that shit that Bruno Mannheim was pumping into Bizarro, Bizarro's gonna wake up, but he's definitely not gonna be the same man we once knew last season. He's probably gonna be more of like the natural Bizarro we know from the comics, where he's gonna be a little bit more dumb, and he's also just gonna be like a mindless monster that gets controlled by whoever's his master. Which, maybe they might play it differently, but I am curious to see what happens and how Bizarro reacts to waking up. Because that has to happen next episode, because the dude will open his eyes at the end. What did you think of this episode? What was your favorite moment? Let me know if you have any theories about the Bizarro, Lex Luthor, or Superboy stuff. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, hit the subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot, and you can stay up to date with all my other DC breakdowns. I am currently doing Titans and The Flash on top of this, so make sure you follow to check out all those. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you later.